So this is what you made last year.
Correct.
And are you going to owe the government some money?
Unfortunately.
This amount?
No.
That amount?
No.
Probably more like that?
Yes.
So you owe the government this amount of money. Do you feel like you're being heavily taxed on the money that you make? Well, listen, you should give the government the taxes that they're owed, but only after you understand all of the different loopholes of how you can minimize this amount. And in today's video, I'm going to talk about estate planning, and I'm going to talk about how little you can pay in taxes if you didn't technically even earn it in the first place.
One shot, now the future is yours. Go! I'm turning dreams into reality. Yeah, it's one shot, now the future is yours. Go!
All right, we back at it again. Today, we're talking about estate planning and how it can help you lessen or even avoid some of those massive taxes that are waiting to pounce upon you. And I get what you're probably thinking. Estate planning, trusts, like what are we talking about today? Well, think about it this way. When you own stuff and when you make money, it means that you owe money. But can you owe money if you don't really have any of the money in the first place? Can you be held liable if nothing's really in your name? What really is estate planning? And what is a trust? And is it really something for the wealthy, or is it actually something that average everyday people should have? So for a moment, think of me as an entity. I'm a person, I live and breathe, I possess a soul.
You gotta give me control, it's the only way.
And basically, I have a social security number that identifies me to my government as a person with a number that they can track. I am an entity. This entity is productive. I work in society. I have a job. I make money. And at the end of the day, I have to pay taxes. And if I'm good at making money, which if you're a subscriber on my channel, you should be getting pretty good at making money, then eventually you're going to owe a lot of taxes. And then you're going to have to find some solutions for how can I reduce my taxes? How can I also protect myself, from being a target out there in the world? That's what today's conversation is, because I want to introduce you to a different word. It's called a trust. A trust is also an entity, but instead of a living, breathing person, think of it more like a company or it's an organization. And it's treated different than you as a person, which is why often when people become more and more successful, instead of owning all of their stuff as a person, they transfer it to a different entity called a trust that has some really cool benefits. All right, so what is a trust? A trust is a fiduciary relationship in which one party, known as a trustor, gives another party, the trustee, the right to hold title to property or assets for the benefit of a third party, the beneficiary. In other words, let's make this real simple. I like buying real estate. And when I buy real estate, even if I buy it in my name, I'm going to transfer it into a different entity called an LLC. It's a limited liability company. And that LLC has its own name. It has its own social security number called a tax ID number. And it basically says this entity, not Kris Krohn, owns this asset. Well, a trust is very similar. It's an organization that basically says, I, the living, breathing soul that made this money and have these assets, I'm going to deposit it in this entity. This entity is going to be run by other people, and it's going to be for the benefit of other people. And by setting up this type of situation, guess what it does? It creates some really, really, really cool benefits, which we're going to discuss, including minimizing taxes. Wait. So Kris, let me make sure I understand this correctly. We're going to set up this entity, and you're going to deposit your assets into it. Someone else is going to manage it, and then someone else is going to be the beneficiary? Let's define the beneficiary. Typically your spouse or your children or your charities. These are the different types of beneficiaries who receive the assets that are held in trust. Now, by the way, for just a moment, is that any different than me making money and basically saying, well, I am married and I have 4 kids, and guess what? I get benefits from it, but so do they. It's actually a very, very similar thing. Trusts can help you control who gets what and how they receive it. For example, you could design your trust to help pay your grandchildren's tuition when they turn 18, or you could supplement your children's retirement at 65, or you could provide annual contributions to your local church. In other words, you deposit all of your stuff in a trust, and then you get to write up the rules of how it's going to be dispersed. And you can still receive benefit along the way from your trust. It's just a different way of doing accounting. And now we're going to get to some of the benefits that you get for doing this. All right, so let's take a look at some of the main benefits of a trust. Here's number one. It allows you to distribute your assets with significant tax benefits. And in a moment, I'll give you a very real example of what kind of crazy, amazing savings can come to you if your assets are sitting in a trust. But that's not all. Check this out. It shields your funds from creditors. Basically, anytime something's in your name, if the IRS wants something from you, if someone is trying to sue you, if a creditor wants to take something from you, they're basically going into online portals, they're looking up your name, your social security number, and they're like, there are your assets. Let's levy them. Let's try to take them. Let's put a lien against them. But if they're in a trust, they're no longer in your name, so they can't take what isn't yours. And then benefit number three, it protects children's inheritance if the surviving spouse remarries. So part of this is legacy planning. It's down the road planning on, hey, how do I want to instruct my wealth to be divvied out over time as well? A trust will actually take care of that. It has benefits today, tomorrow, and decades from now. Let me give you an example of some of the tax benefits. Let's say that a couple is worth $2 million, and let's just assume they live in Oregon, which has an estate tax on all estates over $1 million. The couple could split their estate so that each has $1 million, and each spouse would then execute a trust to shelter their $1 million when the first spouse passes away. That way, when the second spouse passes, the second million is owned by them, and the first million is controlled by a trust. And their beneficiaries get the full $2 million of free, tax-free money. Now, you need to be thinking long-term enough to understand that at some point when you pass, the government says, we are going to extract maximum money out of that as opposed to allowing it to go to your heirs. So in this example, what does a trust do? It helps you avoid those long-term taxes upon death. Now, you understand that the federal government has a death tax, right? As of 2022, the first $12 million of an estate is exempt from federal estate taxes or taxes imposed on the transfer of your wealth at your death. A husband and wife are also considered two different entities. So theoretically, they would have no estate tax if their estate is less than $24.12 million. But I need you to understand, if your money is not in a trust, then you don't get this benefit. Or if you're just using a basic will, then you're not going to get this level of benefit either. And there is talk that the government wants to alter these limits, which means it's going to be more important than ever before to actually have your money sitting in a trust to make sure that when it transfers that you don't get hit hard between the eyes by the government. Understand that there are different types of trusts and they provide different type of tax benefits. Some of those tax benefits are for today, tomorrow, and some at the end of your life or along the way, or even long after you've passed for those of you that are subscribers on my channel, growing money and then using it to multiply your wealth even after death. Well, check it out. You've got living trusts, you have charitable trusts, you have constructive trusts, special needs trusts, spendthrift trusts, tax bypass trusts, totem trusts. There's a whole variety. Some are for asset protection, some are for some tax savings. In my estate, I have 4 different types of trusts, and that money goes through each of them because those entities are designed to minimize my taxes, minimize my state and my federal taxes. It also means that I'm fully protected, basically as protected as a human being possibly can. Bottom line is, if you have found your niche in the world for building wealth, if you're doing well in your career, if you're setting money aside for your future, if you're an investor, becoming an investor, or a successful investor, or a successful business owner, this is something that you need to be thinking of now, not tomorrow, not next year. This is go time. Unfortunately, most people may never get to the point where they really need the benefits of a trust because by 65 years old, all they have is a couple $100,000 sitting aside in a 401k and IRA. And remember, at the age of 54, you're gonna hit your peak earnings at an average of $90,000. So a couple $100,000 is really gonna last you what? 2 years? And then you're gonna run out of money. That's a dilemma in and of itself. You need a trust if you have a real wealth plan, a game plan to build wealth. You should be asking yourself, how do I take $50,000, $100,000, or $200,000 and turn it into millions of dollars? You're definitely gonna want and need a trust when it comes to that, which means that your first step is to get a financial game plan. How do you take the little you have and multiply that wealth? Well, you're in luck, because today, guess what? I have trained 40 individuals on my team as coaches to create game plans. Very much just like winning the big game at the end of a tournament, you're gonna need a game plan on how to do that. And what I do is I help people take small amounts of money and then turn them into very large amounts of money. And you know what, it's not hard. While there is definitely risk to investing, the greatest risk is winding up at age 65 with not enough money. Get a wealth plan on how to grow your assets. And then also part of that wealth plan will be get that money sitting in a trust where you can minimize your taxes, create maximum safety for you, your loved ones, your heirs, and the people that you're going to be passing it on to in the future. Now, the cool thing is, guess what I'm charging today for a free game plan? I'm charging free $99. That's my cute way of saying that it's just free. If you click the link below, you can just basically fill out your information, get with a member of my team and say, all right, if Kris were in my shoes today with as little or as a lot as I have, how would he build wealth? How would he turn what I have into millions of dollars? And they're gonna give you a very, very, very specific game plan on exactly how to do that. Doesn't cost you anything. I think the fresh perspective is worth everything. So click the link right now and get signed up. A big part of building wealth is having a plan. And I believe that your life should have a plan. I believe that your health should have a plan. I believe that growing your relationship should have a plan. I also think that the smartest financial move you'll ever make in your life is owning a business. I didn't say operating, I said owning a business. And you need a plan for that as well. If you don't really know how to build a simple plan on how to build a very lucrative business to take care of you and your family, click this video. I've made it for you. Does that sound about right? More?
I wish it was.
More? Probably right around there, right?
That would be great.
So I want to ask you, do you really want to give this to government? To the government? Let's try it again. I couldn't either. All right.
Call the 5D guy.